Hey, Abby dog. Hey, Toby dog. How's it going, guys? Unfortunately, I'm gonna actually have to leave the dogs behind today because you and I are going on a little adventure. And unfortunately, where we're heading on the farm, I can't take them with me, or at least take them with me easily. How's it going there, Betty Rubble? The girls are just sitting here eating and loafing. You know, one of the questions I've been getting a lot lately is, what are some of my plans for 2025 in terms of farm projects I want to tackle and improvements I want to make? You know, there's a bunch of stuff. I'm trying to avoid going too crazy. One of the things I want to try to do is figure out a new winter setup for the cattle. I'm going to also try to experiment a little bit with a better handling yard for the cattle. So like when I need to do medical stuff with them. I also have plans to use the goats in some experimental ways as groundskeepers around the farm. But far and away, the biggest project I have on my to-do list is I want to make our farm bigger. And when I say bigger, I don't mean add more animals or buy a second farm or anything like that. But what I want to do is actually have more land on the farm that I can use for the farm. So what I mean about that specifically is our farm is about 160 acres or so in overall size. And when you guys watch our videos this time of the year, you're basically seeing everything down that way, which is, I don't know, about a 12-acre space that we use for the permaculture orchard, the cattle yard, the bird yard, the hoop coop, the dogs, like all that stuff, plus our house and the barns and that sort of thing. And in the summer months, we spend a ton of time up here, right? Like this is where the cattle are always grazing and where I'm always riding my bike. And we've got about, I don't know, 25-ish acres of pasture up here. But if you're doing your math at home there, right? There's probably about 110, 115 acres that remained unaccounted for. And most of that acreage is in forest. And I actually think it's really good to have a lot of your acreage in forest. You know, that forest really provides really good habitat for wildlife. It creates a buffer for our farm. And, you know, it just does a lot of good things. And so keeping a farm in balance is actually really important, and part of that balance is having plenty of forest. Oh, look, you can see what I think are fox tracks that go that way. So you kind of notice this pattern that exists here where the fox was coming down that way, and then as soon as it got around to this side of the farm where you've got the dogs down that way, decides to veer left and go that way because the dogs create this protective bubble. That protective bubble is actually one of the reasons why I really like having wildlife like coyotes on the farm, because they do good things for helping to balance the land. And I can rely on Toby dog and Abby dog to keep my birds safe. And so you don't really have conflict with wildlife. You can more or less live in harmony. And so yes, I do think it's important to have forest, and we've got plenty of it. But there is this one part of the farm way over there that's like a mixture of pasture and forest. It used to be pasture. I don't know, over the last 30 or so years, it keeps growing out and becoming more and more foresty. And so that's what I actually want to show you guys in today's video. Oh, would you look at that? We got some relatively fresh coyote scat here. It's frozen solid, but not too old. It's all going along these tracks that you guys see going through here. You can see on our pasture, there's still probably about 2.5 feet of snow on the ground. If these tracks weren't already laid down, I'd probably be wearing my snowshoes right now. Because if you try to walk in the pasture snow, you'll just fall right through it. But yeah, we got to just keep heading that way. All right, now to just give you a quick sense of where we are, this is the back corner of the pasture. So, you know, a lot of times in my videos, like in the summer, you'll see Abby dog and me come through the gate to go move the cattle. Well, this is actually the back side. And so the other gate is like directly on the other side of this field here. And as we get over here, this is the part of the farm I usually like to refer to as the secret pasture, meaning it's like, I don't know, it's kind of hidden. And like I said, it used to be like real deal, legit pasture, but over the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years, it really hasn't been used much. I come through here and brush hog it, you know, once or twice a year just to keep it from overgrowing too much. But you can see there's trees that have sprung up. You'll see here in a minute, there's just like a lot of rough lines that come into play. But as a big project that I want to try to tackle in 2025, I actually want to fence this whole area in. And so what you're seeing here is a path for the fence. And so this is where the future fence is going to run. And you're probably going to notice it just looks like somebody's come through here and has been grinding down branches and brush and basically creating a clear path that is going to make it significantly easier for me to try to put a fence around this area come, say, I don't know, May or June or whenever I actually start doing this work. Like, yeah, you can even see these cedars getting their branches grinded off. Like all of this, it's a swath. And so everything you see actually on this side is gonna be fenced in. And my initial plan is that actually in this pasture is where I'm gonna keep my heifers this year. So that includes Betty Rubble, who you guys saw just a little bit earlier, as well as Betty White and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Claire and Belle. Like those 4 girls are gonna be separated from the herd so that they don't breed with Macho Man. They're gonna be living out here, kinda in the wilderness. I mean, this will now become our farm's true wilderness. And this side is gonna basically turn into silvo pasture. But essentially with this change, our farm is gonna have a new, like, furthest outreach of like civilized space. Everything you're seeing right here is where the new fence is gonna run. And so this stuff will be fenced in, this stuff won't. The cattle are actually gonna love having trees because it gives them shade and shelter. But then I'll also probably start coming through here with like a chainsaw and just taking out more trees and thinning this out, because what I really want to have is like this combination of good, healthy, mature trees, grass and pasture, just like all mixed together as one habitat. You know, my main pasture has always been clear cut, but in a perfect world, it would actually have a mixture of trees and grass. What we're actually going to try to create out here is that mixture. Hear the noise? Yeah, that's what I'm going to show you guys in just a minute. Because you're probably wondering, what sort of equipment would you use to make a path like this? I'm going to give you that answer right now. And it comes at the courtesy of my buddy Alfred.
My buddy Alfred, he lives on down the road. He's a wizard with machines, a genius in blue jeans. Let's stop and say hello.
How's it going today?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. So what the heck's going on, Alfred?
Well, we're cutting in a perimeter here for your new pasture, or your old pasture.
Resuscitation of pasture, I
Yep.
suppose. You've been out here, what? It's been 5 days or so? 6 days?
4 or 5.
5, yeah. So
So I have that mulching head on, and I'm going through and grinding down little trees like that. There are a bunch of cedars. I can take the limbs off and grind up all that debris, and it'll, I mean, you know, still end up with bigger chunks like this, but it'll lay low on the ground and decompose rather quickly. Going along the top of the property was pretty easy. I just had to chew off all the cedars on the edge of the existing pasture, and there were a few places where I found some wire running into a few old trees there. Coming down the southern boundary, pretty much the same thing, but this eastern boundary, this lower side, was a different beast altogether, because it was there were no landmarks. I was just charging through the woods, really.
So for the way this actually worked in terms of planning, I had like a rough sketch of it. You made a better, less rough sketch on your phone, and you've basically been cutting to that line more or less.
Yeah, you know, with your rough sketch and the criteria being you want as many straight lines as possible, so we don't need to mess around with corner posts with the fencing or whatever. That's what I've had in mind while doing this work. And on this lower edge, I kind of punched through like the thinnest vegetation, the thinnest trees that I could. I've established a couple corners. There's one up here, very logical corner, and then I have my tractor parked down on another one. And now what I'm doing is just kind of cutting back this line so that I can maintain a line of sight between my tractor and this top corner. And I'm really close at this point. I think maybe 3 or 4 more trees and it'll be close enough.
I was gonna say, like, it looks like it's almost connected, because I've pretty much just, with these guys, walked the entire perimeter of that side, and I'm just gonna do the full loop.
Yeah.
And so it looks like, yeah, the full loop is not that far away.
Yeah, I finished the loop last night. A little while ago, because there was so much snow, I came through with my tractor and kind of plowed. So I got back up onto that plowed road yesterday. And then what I've done in a few places is I've punched down through from the middle of the pasture, from that established road. I've punched down through to this perimeter. I mean, if you're ever doing any work down here with your tractor, it'll just be more convenient to come straight down the hill rather than having to circumnavigate the entire thing. You know, for the cows, I think it'd just be easy, you know, give them avenues to walk. And
Yeah, I mean, because like the slow progress is gonna be, it's like, I'll start just knocking out trees here and there inside, just so that like the good stuff stays, but then the other stuff ends up like basically dying out, either getting beaten up by cattle, which they'll do that, or it'll be something that gets cut down so that, you know, like every 10, 20 feet, I do want a tree, but I don't want it to be forest and like essentially reclaiming all of that.
yeah, I think it'll be a haven for the cows this summer.
Yeah.
If that's what your plan is, to have them in here. It'll be nice and shady, and especially up top, there's that spring up there where you got stuck. You can cut to that footage.
So yesterday I was out brush hogging the secret pasture. Oh look, a deer.
when I suddenly became stuck in a whole bunch of mud. Boom!
Like swampland right here.
Who could forget that memory? So show me the tool, because I think folks will be actually really curious about the idea of a forestry mulcher.
I was able to rent this from a guy in southern New Hampshire. It works really well. It just has those teeth. Those are cast steel teeth. And there's a hydraulic motor underneath that cover right there, so it's a direct drive thing, and I think the thing spins at like 15, 16, 1700 RPM, something like that. You know, a little tree like this, like that cedar, I'd almost be able to reach the top, reach up high, get the thing spun up, and then I can just careen down through the tree, knead it right up. And I found that the cedars are soft and they get eaten right up. White pine like that's pretty soft. And also all these pasture pines, you know, they split into multiple stems really quickly. Every single one of them. There's not a straight tree anywhere to be found, but they get eaten up.
And I think this is like such an important thing to recognize too. Like all of these trees that we're seeing here are maybe not quite as young as we are, but they're not a lot older.
Right.
Like I don't think there's a single 100-year tree within this pasture area. This is all stuff that sprung up after, you know, Vermont was clear cut at one point, and that's where people just basically grazed sheep. Things have grown back to the point where it's actually almost the ratio that it was, say, in like 1850 is like the opposite.
Yeah,
it was like
80-20, 20-80.
Yeah, or 80-20 or 75-25, something like that, where it was 25% forest, 75 open. Now it's the other way around. And so it is essentially reclaiming that pasture the way it was 100, 150 years ago.
So this eastern boundary, it's not so pronounced right here, but like a little bit further down where my tractor's parked, you'll see there's a real distinctive drop off in the terrain. And so I've kind of been using that as a control point. I went right up to that drop off, and I'm sure, you know, that was the case. That was like the logical edge of a pasture 100 years ago or whatever.
Well, I mean, even the reason why this turned the way it did versus the other pastures still stayed like a good hayfield is this area is much wetter and the soil's much more acidic than over there. There's a lot more clay here versus over on that side, it's a lot more sandy loam. And so like the reason they divided our pastures that way, say 150, 200 years ago, is because they were looking at like what's the quality of the ground and can we use it or not, and so you see that play out even today. So Alfred, what have you been doing this winter other than grinding out trails?
Oh, well, I've been driving a school bus. I don't even know what I've been doing.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, I've been sewing pants.
You've been sewing. That's right. Yeah, you got pants.
Yeah.
Do you do commission orders yet?
No, not quite yet. I got a backlog of friends and families I got to chew through first, but
Yeah, if anybody's out there wants them, drop it down in the comments, and maybe in 6 months you might be actually up and running.
yeah, Kevlar reinforced work panels.
Yeah.
When I'm done with the mulcher, I'll probably fight my way back up into the quarry and start splitting stone for a bunch of projects, including your wall and a couple other projects that are on the
Actually, if
docket.
anybody is curious about this, Alfred has like a whole YouTube channel about his quarry and what he does with stone, which, you know, this time of year isn't the best type of work, but in the summer, it's incredible. And so I'll leave a link for it, as well as maybe link a video up here so you guys can check that out. Think you can grind that tree? Wanna give it a go?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
There it is, the old tree to leader 9000.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the cedar goes really well. Any of the hardwoods, like whatever that is, some kind of cherry or whatever, that it's stringier, it's a little harder to eat up. Yeah, I don't know. I can pick my battles now. Actually, what happened is I cut it with a chainsaw, tried pushing it one way, didn't want to go, so I was like, oh, I'll get the machine, push it over, and then I forgot that I cut it and knocked it over onto my machine.
Oh, jeez.
And actually, you can see right there, right behind you, across that tree's the mirror that's knocked off.
Oh, dear.
That's what I get for forgetting about half-cut trees. It's probably a real bad habit.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're not a lumberjack, and be careful. I feel like I am so incredibly lucky to have Alfred as a friend. He just comes up with the coolest solutions to problems. Like, you know, this all came about because I was like talking about wanting to expand this pasture, but trying to figure out how to clear stuff out and like what equipment I'd need to rent and all that stuff. He's like, oh, I know what we can do. And he, found that mulcher, figured out how to retrofit it to his excavator, and yeah, here we are. we've got a brand new trail. Now I know one question that's gonna pop up in the comments from folks is, why are we just grinding the trees up? Why am I not trying to log or do anything like that? Like, isn't it just kind of wasting the trees? And like, if you would have asked me, say, I don't know, 10 years ago about a project like this, I would be in the camp of, oh, that's really wasteful. But the more and more I'm out here on the farm, doing projects on the farm, one of the things I realize is that sometimes there's this like factor related to like marginal effort, like, is it worth logging out here and taking all the time versus, you know, like it'll probably take like 6 weeks of work to log this entire trail versus what Alfred's doing, taking him, less than a week. And so that's one factor. The other factor is there aren't any really timber guys out here, or at least in this area, who'd want to log just that small amount. And most of those trees aren't that valuable or all that mature. And so, yeah, some of these logs are gonna end up becoming firewood for either me or for Alfred, like for the bigger trees. Like, for example, when I look at a bigger tree like this one, this is probably gonna get felled and turned into firewood. But for the most part, like for example, that cedar that Alfred ground up, that thing is barely worth anything. I mean, some of the cedars we're cutting down and saving for actually the fence posts for this fence, but then other ones that are crooked, we're probably just grinding them up like you just saw there. You can try to do things perfectly where you preserve every possible piece of value, but generally speaking, you're gonna waste way more time, energy, and money doing that it doesn't save you anything in the long run, and it ends up actually being more wasteful, which I know might seem counterintuitive, but that has definitely been my experience doing this type of stuff over the last few years. All right, so here we're actually at the other back corner of what this pasture will be. And so the main pasture is probably about, I don't know, 50, 75 feet that away. Then there's this slope. This is the start of that same slope. I don't know if I'll ever fence this stuff in just because it is so wet and it's so much on a slope, and there's like a creek that runs back there, I don't know, about 20 feet or so. And so it's probably gonna always stay forest back there. But as you look, as we come up this hill here, this is going to become the new frontier. So I will admit, I meant to actually check on trail cameras in this video, but unfortunately, the trail camera that was back here, the batteries were dead and there was a problem with the card, and so nothing recorded. And so rather than try to show you some wildlife footage, we're just gonna have to walk back to the farm awkwardly in silence.
20 minutes later.
Now, some of you guys might notice that I'm actually wearing sunglasses, and I pretty much never wear sunglasses in a video. But the reason for that is there's just so much white snow on a blindingly sunny bluebird day. Even though it's like, I don't know, I think it's about 5 or 6 degrees Fahrenheit outside right now. The sun is so intense that like, I actually found that I get headaches if I don't wear sunglasses and I'm out in snow like this for too long. Like, I can be down lower part of the pasture doing chores, but like, I mean out here, it's just, I don't even know how well the camera image is gonna be because it's gonna be just so bright and there's so much light and white, it's overpowering. It feels really good, but it just can be overpowering for your eyes. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but the welcoming committee is alerted to my return. They just start barking the minute they hear any noise up on this hill. And actually, if Toby Dog and Abby Dog don't realize it's me, they might end up trying to run this way, but I think they think it's me because they're waiting down by the gate. I actually always think it's so funny when they mistake me for something else, like, you know, because it goes from being like this really deep bellowing bark that could scare a lot of folks or critters or animals or whatever, to like these two friendly white dogs just wagging their tail and bouncing up and down, hoping that I pet them on the belly. It's amazing how quick that transformation happens. Hey, Belle. So actually Belle, who's this red yearling heifer that you see right here, as well as Betty White, who's this Charolais heifer you see right here, these two will actually be part of the squad that goes down to the new pasture that Alfred's working on right now. Baby B is gonna actually go back with the rest of the herd. And then you see Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's on the other side of that bale eating. And then you see next to Buffy, you see Betty Rubble. And I will admit that of the 4 heifers this year, Betty Rubble is the friendliest and probably my most favorite. She's probably the prettiest too. You know, she's got those really good macho man genes, and so she's like good and stocky, but just like really good, I guess the breeders call it conformation too. So she's just a good animal. Speaking of macho man, how's it going, buddy? Taking your afternoon nap? Good to see you, pal. How's it going, macho man? How are you doing, Joey Ramone? Yeah, they've been eating lots of hay all morning and, you know, just enjoying the sunshine. And speaking of enjoying the sunshine, Would you look at these two? Hi, guys. Hi. Come on, inside, inside. Yes, who are the bestest dogs in the world? Yes, you two are the bestest dogs in the world. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Hi. All right. We can give some water to everybody? Let's go.